If you inspect an element in the browser console after publishing a Storyline 360 project, you can see that among all its different properties, there is a property called the z-index. And this shows us the position of an element on an invisible z-axis, which tells the code how close or how far away an element is from us. Let's look at this example where I stacked a background image, a motorcycle, a van, and a car on top of each other. If you were to view this slide in 3D space, you would see something like this. Stacking the objects on top of one another means we are stacking them on the z-axis. The greater the z-index, the closer the element is to us. The smaller the z-index, the closer it is to the background of the slide. You can affect the z-index of an object by moving it up and down in the storyline timeline. So the first element of the timeline has the lowest z-index, and the one at the very top has the highest z-index. In this video, we will play around with the z-index property directly, which means we will be moving an element towards us and away from us using its z-index value. I'm gonna send this spaceship to the back, progressively moving it behind rectangle 3, rectangle 2, and rectangle 1. Well, to start, I'm gonna give this image the accessibility name of spaceship. This will allow me to select the image with my code. Then add a button to create an execute JavaScript trigger that runs when the button is pressed. With my code, I'm gonna first select the spaceship using the accessibility text value and then modify the z-index like this. So basically, I'm affecting the CSS styling of the object, and out of all the properties it has, I'm gonna modify the z-index. Giving it a z-index of 0 will move it to this position behind all the other elements of the slide. Giving it a z-index of 1 will move the spaceship to this position. At this point, I can create a storyline number variable and give it any value I want my z-index to have. And then I only need to change the z-index when I change the storyline variable itself. If I want to go further than this, I can have the z-index be random each time I press the button. This here is a formula that generates a random z-index between 0 and 3. So 0 is the minimum value and 3 is the maximum value I want for my z-index. I can also change the code in order to control the z-index with a slider. To do that, I'm gonna duplicate this slide, insert a slider, then I'm gonna go to the slider design tools and leave the start value at 0. This will be my minimum value. And then I'm gonna change the end value to 3 because 3 is the maximum z-index I want for the spaceship. And then create a trigger that executes this JavaScript code when the slider1 variable changes. And as you can see, it works really well. The spaceship moves forwards and backwards as I drag the slider head around. But we can go even further than this. Look at this example. I placed 4 images of playing cards on the slide, and I've given each card the same accessibility name. They are all called card. You know what? I'm gonna make this into a drag and drop so I can drag the cards around and see if their order actually changes. To do that, I'm gonna add some drop zones and I'm gonna add this button here to shuffle the cards, meaning the cards will be in a different random order each time the button is pressed. And this is the code I'm gonna use to shuffle the cards. I defined a minimum and maximum value here because having other elements in the timeline, I need to ensure that I select the correct range for my z-index value. Because I don't want, for example, my drop zones here to be in front of my draggable item. Then I'm gonna select all the cards by using query selector all. Now, unlike just using query selector, like we did with the spaceship, this will select all 4 of my cards because they all have this accessibility value. And because I'm selecting several elements, the variable here will contain an array of 4 elements. Then I'm defining a function to calculate a random index in a range between the minimum and maximum values I defined previously. Then for each element in my cards array, I'm gonna call the function to calculate a random index, then assign the index to the element. And now if I preview this, you can see that each time I click on the button, the card deck is shuffled. But we know what actually happens behind the scenes, meaning each time the button is clicked, we are assigning a new z-index to each card. This looks really cool. I am actually really happy with how this all turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. Thank you for watching.